so many things to talk about this week, but I kind of have to narrow it down. So what do we have? Let's see. Hot off the press, astronauts being saved from space, finally. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Apple, yeah, I think we mentioned this last week, but a little bit more info on Siri's improvements, or should I say non-improvements, and something that might never come. So let's see how that goes. I thought this was interesting. It's kind of leaked, but it's always interesting to see how other companies do their performance review. So that's been a big thing recently. Of course, layoffs continue to happen in tech. So maybe we'll just do a quick pass over that, see how that goes. But anyways, yeah. So that's it.
When I woke up this morning, I was welcomed to notification that the stranded Boeing astronauts were finally in a position to be rescued. Because if you haven't been following the story, Boeing launched astronauts to space last June. I think it was June 5th of last year. It was supposed to be like what, a 8-day mission?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because there were some malfunctions on the capsule, the astronauts couldn't return to space. So they ended up being stranded up in the International Space Station for 9 months. And we've talked about it in a number of episodes before, but the whole thing was, yes, Elon, SpaceX is going to have to go save them. And that's what happened. So launched a SpaceX Dragon capsule into space with 4 astronauts. 2 of them are actually going to replace the Boeing astronauts. And again, those astronauts are Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. And so they're going to spend some time up there overlapping to get the debrief. And then Butch and Suni will return on the SpaceX Dragon capsule finally and see their families who, you know, have been just waiting for them to come back. So yeah, kudos to SpaceX for launching that mission to get them. And I guess the last stage here is hoping that the return to Earth goes well. Any thoughts on that, Tony?
So I was wondering, was this an already pre-planned flight launch? Meaning it wasn't just to go rescue them. Because I was reading about it and they kept saying it was replacing the
Hmm.
astronauts they were bringing back with 2 more. But there are 3 up there. So I didn't know if this was already a pre-planned. And so instead of just coming back empty, they're coming back with the additional astronauts. Do you know?
I didn't see anything saying that, but these new astronauts will spend the next 6 months in a space station,
Got it.
possibly,
Anyways,
or planned because of the situation, right?
yeah.
So,
Okay. All right. Anyways, no big deal. I just didn't want to give false credit for rescuing these astronauts when it was already an
ooh, very,
expedition going
very,
up.
very pessimistic there.
It's just a sign of the times, I guess. It's maybe a little bit more factual, not trying to spin positivity where there shouldn't be one. Anyways, they get to come home.
We
The outstanding thing is they didn't plan to be up there for like half a year. Sure,
we
they'll
should
be
go
glad
back
to
to
be
one of
back.
our former episodes because I think you were talking about it more in a positive light.
Yeah, I was.
Elon's gonna have to rescue
I know.
these astronauts.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly people change.
uh,
But anyways,
so thankful for them finally coming home. I was thinking like if I was gone unexpectedly for 9 months and I finally came
I
back,
know, right?
so much would be different.
Yeah. But
It's crazy.
yeah. So,
All right, quick nod to that. A little update. Let's move on to our next story. You want to give us a sum up on these leaks?
yeah, so let's see where
Two
it's
juicy
two
leaks.
yeah, 2 leaks. Okay, so this one we've talked about off and on. I think we actually talked about it last week too, but there's a leaked information coming out of Apple that kind of shows like they were kind of talking about how bad their Siri situation is. Meaning that so this was technically paper launched last June, which was like wow, it's going to be almost a year soon, right? And they still haven't. launched the improvements that they had showcased way back then for Siri.
Yeah.
And so, as you know, Apple doesn't like to launch things that aren't perfect. One, two, they just don't launch things that aren't ready. But in this instance, it was pushed forward to kind of like preview a lot of what they were working on for Siri, and they have no idea when they will actually launch them still. Um, and so it's just not working out as well as Apple is hoping, I'm guessing. And so I thought this was kind of interesting because it's a major flub on Apple's part, right? Because it was a big launch. I mean, this not just a big launch. This was like the linchpin of like where is iPhone going next, right? And
Yeah.
everybody's building expectations on it driving new sales. And then, there's been a lot of surveys and stuff of people like, when do you plan to upgrade to your next iPhone? It's like everybody's waiting for these AI features. So the mighty Apple has gotten a lot of downgrades over the past couple of weeks now. But anyways, I just thought it was, this is a pretty juicy leak,
Yeah.
kind of outlining how bad the situation is in regards to Apple's AI stuff.
Why do you think this is for Apple? I mean, aside from the fact that, yes, Apple likes to wait till things are perfect before they actually launch. With the amount of money Apple has, the amount of talent, and how big the company is, why do you think they can't solve this problem?
That's interesting.
Yeah. To me, I think
Sure.
it's culture. Like, Google is known as more of a hacky culture, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Facebook is known as, or Meta is known as a cutthroat, like, you
Yeah.
better get this done or else you're
Yeah.
axed
Yeah.
culture. And Microsoft is, I mean, Microsoft's not even in the game really,
Yeah.
other than their investment, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, I think it's probably culture. I've had friends there who have worked there, and while it was like, you know, for very many, it's a dream company to get a job at. But when they actually got there and got the job, it's like they couldn't deal with it because one,
Yeah.
they told me multiple friends have told me this, that a lot of people there are like elitists and they don't really necessarily want to work with you, especially if
Yeah.
they've been there for a while.
Yeah.
And then two, yeah, it just takes forever to launch the smallest thing.
Yeah. I mean, do you also think it's so culture is one, they kind of, right, they're working more towards perfection, as you kind of saying. But it's also, I think it's the technology too, right? I mean, even today, like if I went out to ChatGPT or, Gemini or whatnot, I mean, sure, it can have a conversation, but it's like I still don't trust it, right? And I think I think that's the from what I've read, that's like one of the core issues is that it's wrong too many times,
Hmm.
right? And even, you take everybody that's in it right now, it's still wrong a lot of the times. Like I still wouldn't trust a lot of it. Now, the types of things you might ask Siri to do, like, does that matter? Right? I think some people would argue it's like, what if the temperature is wrong for that day? Just ask again, right? So I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma, I guess.
Yeah, as you were talking about that, I was trying to think about my experience with my Apple device, which I've been an Apple device user since 2000. I think two, I didn't get the first one. I got the second one, so it's like
Uh,
2009. And I think that's the bread and butter of Apple. It's like
No,
it just works all the time
yeah,
generally, and
yeah,
like I've had really no problems other than things like apps crashing
yeah,
or stuff like that. But other than that, it's been pretty solid. So
yeah. I
maybe
rarely have
that's
issues.
yeah, maybe that's why. Yeah, to your point, maybe that's why they just can't release
Yeah,
it yet, because
yeah,
even that one little thing that's going to cause one person
yeah,
to like raise an eye is
yeah.
enough for them.
And maybe this also highlights a problem with the strategy, right?
Yeah.
Because Apple hasn't really built their own. Well, I mean, I'm saying this without being inside the company. But from the outside, it's like they haven't really built out their own AI capabilities, right? They're still reliant on third-party AI, and they touted that as the strength, which eventually it might be, but that's also another thing too, right? You're having to integrate and use, either OpenAI or Gemini or whatever, Alibaba.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like they have so much money.
Mhm.
Why don't they just go acquire an AI
Their own AI
company?
company.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know what hasn't been acquired, at least out of the major players, right?
yeah.
Maybe Anthropic,
Anthropic.
because it's Minstrel is Amazon. I guess there's
Claude is
per
built off of Anthropic, right?
yeah. I think Claude is Anthropic.
Yeah.
Perplexity,
Oh, Mistral. You said Mistral. Yeah.
yeah, Mistral. I think that was the Perplexity.
But yeah, I mean, we're talking about the well-known companies, right?
Yeah, I
But I'm
mean,
sure
I'm
there's
sure.
hundreds of other ones that are
Yeah,
maybe not
yeah,
making mainstream, but are still at least
yeah.
good. Yeah. So, anyways,
Um,
that just perplexes me with the amount of resources that Apple has, but they can't solve it.
yeah, that's true. But we'll keep waiting. I was trying to figure out like what else came out of this, and apparently they don't know either how much longer it's going to take to solve the issues that they're having with Siri, which is
Or even like poaching people. Like, the whole. Did you
oh
watch the
yeah,
Blackberry movie?
there's a BlackBerry movie.
Yeah, there's a Blackberry movie. I think it's
Okay,
on Prime. But I used to work at BlackBerry. That's like one of my first real jobs.
yeah,
Uh, and their whole strategy in the early days was to
no,
poach like people from
yeah,
companies like Google
yeah, uh
and just pay them a ridiculous amount of like compensation.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean that still happens today. I feel like, well, I feel like it happens with like more like the exec level, like just poaching
Yeah.
back and forth, right?
They got in trouble for it though.
Mm.
Because there's something like they would backdate stock so
Oh,
that
okay.
so
See,
yeah,
that's not good to do. If you're gonna take him, just take him. But so we'll see. So everybody looking forward to Siri is gonna have to continue. And then side note, like assistants. Apparently Google has killed assistants. So their version of Siri was assistant at some point, and so now that Gemini is taking over. So I guess Google is full steam ahead on that.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, it makes
so it
sense.
just makes it even worse then for Apple, right? Is because like I always thought Assistant was better than Siri. At least what did it? I used to have Google's Hub thing. I guess it's like Amazon's Alexa Hub thing. I use it quite often too. And so it looks like they're retiring the Assistant and putting Gemini on it, and so that's just gonna put them further ahead than where Apple is.
Yeah.
And then again, we're still waiting for Alexa to get her improvements too. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. It's weird though. Like in this race, I don't see Amazon as a major competitor for some reason. Maybe it's because Amazon is huge and like, top five, right? In terms of
Yeah,
companies, market
yeah,
cap wise, but I don't view them as a tech company. Maybe that's why. Not well, I view them as a tech company. I don't view them as necessarily a strong consumer tech company like Apple and Google and Meta,
yeah,
even though we
yeah.
have like five of the I don't want to say it ALEXAs in
Uh,
house.
that's
Yeah,
funny. I mean, yeah, when you say you don't think, but then again, you have five of
yeah.
their things around. I
But there's
use
like specific use cases, and it's really just to play music.
mm, yeah, like I use Ring, which, in case people didn't know, is an Amazon owned company.
Yeah.
My whatever
None of
products that are.
those to me are like kind of similar to Apple, Meta, and Google, to where you're just kind of using it constantly throughout the day.
Yeah,
Like both Ring, because I have Ring as well, and the speakers are
yeah,
just very like passive. I'd say
yeah, yeah. Didn't Amazon have a phone at one point? I feel like
the
there was an
Fire Phone.
Amazon. Yeah, I feel like there was a Fire phone and it killed it.
Well, actually, I don't think it was ever released. I think they were making it and they killed it. I think it was like
Yeah,
shortly after Microsoft killed their phone plans.
that's right. But at least they've stuck with their Fire tablet
Yeah.
devices. I guess it's just made more sense.
I mean, even Meta was making a phone at one point.
Yeah. Made it made I guess at the time it didn't Makes sense. I kind of wish Meta had bought Palm. That would have actually worked. That probably would have worked out for them.
Yeah.
Palm was actually a very good OS back.
Yeah.
Not the old school Palm. It was
It
the
was, yeah, Pebble OS.
yes, yeah, that was cool. And now it's went and died on LG's TVs. I had a
All right.
Pebble, or at least my wife had a Pebble. It was
Oh,
actually,
is it?
yeah, it was really good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was a good UI. I mean, these are all during the days when I was at BlackBerry, so I was like in
Oh,
the industry.
you were actually in it, right? Yeah. How time flies.
All right, you want
Anyways,
to talk about the second leak?
what was the other? Oh, yeah, the other leak. So, a lot of people might find this interesting, but with all the layoffs that have been continuously happening for the past whatever. So, it was a leak that kind of explained how ByteDance's evaluation rubric was going. And this has mainly come up because a lot of people are starting to get laid off from ByteDance. And, oh, okay. Apparently, it's been handed down that managers are supposed to assign more diverse scores, meaning they needed to put more people on PIP and try to get them out. It's a very, I don't want to say complex, but there's a lot of things you have to be rated against. It was like 7 or 8 different, I guess scaling is like 8 different things. Let's just simplify it and say it's like 1 through 8 is how you should be scored.
Mm.
Typically, at tech, anything on the bottom 30 to 40% is considered really not great. And so, yeah, if you're in tech, it's just a very interesting insight to see how they try to score people. The important part is they're trying to get more people out. Managers have been told to rate people lower. And that actually doesn't bode well for ByteDance in general, I guess, if they are looking to lay off, because they're supposed to be the hot thing right now, right?
Well, I mean, is it? They're still the hot thing. So, I mean, for me, I read it as just raising the bar.
Raising the bar.
I mean, you experience this with high growth companies where
Yeah,
they go through a couple years of just hiring a lot, right? Like recruiters have hiring pressure. It's like
yeah,
your performance is judged how many people you get in the door. And then managers have pressure because the work's not going anywhere and they need more people.
yeah,
And then HR has and HR, but also just like the CEO has pressure because the board is saying you need to, you know, grow your company by X, Y. So,
yeah,
all that stuff. So it's a
yeah,
complex dynamic. And so after going through a couple years of this, quite honestly, you're left with a percentage of staff that's just not good performers
yeah,
or actually doesn't fit culturally
yeah, yeah,
because it takes that long to really suss that out, right?
yeah,
And so now it's like raising the bar. Like,
yeah,
let's trim the fat.
yeah.
That's how I read it.
Okay,
So,
all right. That's
but I am an optimist.
you are. I was gonna call Amazon. I'm sorry if I do, but it's okay because I don't plan to work for Amazon. But Amazon has that reputation of kind of being like churn and burn, right? And so they'll
Yeah.
hire you to fire you, regardless if you are great or not. That's how the pessimist in me kind of read through this, right? It's not necessarily actually trimming the fat. It's like back in Microsoft's day with their bell curve, right?
Yeah.
Where always 10% of people were laid off every year, right? And so it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily indicate that you're actually a poor performer, right? Because like you hired the smartest people in the world, tried
So,
to
you have to get rid of 10%.
you still get rid of 10%, and to say that they're low performers is probably not accurate, right? And so that's where, I don't to me it's more under the guise of low performance, right? Trying to fit people into these rungs so that you can't lay them off.
But in your example there, they are low performers compared to their peers.
But that's what I'm saying though. It's like again, you're assuming like TikTok
Yeah.
hasn't hired the best people,
Yeah.
right?
But
Anyways,
I agree with you in a meta point here is I always roll my eyes at performance review,
yeah,
like calibrations and frameworks. It's like, why can't we just live in a world where, hey, you're doing a great job, you're hitting what you need to hit,
right, right.
so let's pay you like
Yeah,
justifiably
right.
versus, oh no, you were. out of 5 people, you were the lowest because of X, but all 5 of you are great. But because
Right.
you're the lowest, like,
Yeah.
you're only gonna get that 2% raise.
Yeah. So to me, that's the biggest problem in tech, right? It's just like this stack ranking, everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, what they've been assigned, told to do, etc. Yet one of you has to go because,
Yeah,
right? And then somebody who might have been previously in that four that survived might be the next one out just
yeah,
because, right? And so I guess that's, and you made a point for me. It's like nobody has solved this, right? These big tech companies go through all this, but it still feels a little bit arbitrary, right? And surprising that it hasn't really been solved. Like I still haven't seen a
yeah.
company who does it.
I mean, it's 'cause it's up to, the CEO, ultimately to
Yeah,
set that culture,
yeah,
but what happens is when you start to scale and get bigger, you hire HR professionals,
yeah,
then you hire consultants
yeah,
to figure out, and then it's based off of, like, what's been working, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
yeah.
So,
But yeah, anyways, just I thought this was interesting because of where we are. It's just how I just keep seeing more people get laid off. And
yeah,
people still to this date looking for jobs that have been laid off for like a year. Like I can't imagine. Anyways,
yeah. Well, we ended on a somber note.
yeah,
Um,
sometimes it does, but
yeah, sometimes it does, I mean, but yeah, I agree with you. I was just talking about it last night, and surprise layoffs are still going on.
right, right,
Alright, we'll come back next week for 53.
yeah, that's all I
And
got.
alright, we'll talk to you later.
All right, see ya.